Hi, I'm Adam Pritchard, Assistant Curator of Paleontology at the Virginia Museum of Natural History, back with another tale of ancient life. And I'm not going to lie, this was a hard one to put together, because there's so much I want to say about the creature I feature in this week's episode. It's just so many different stories to tell that I'm actually going to be splitting it into two parts. So this is part one of the tale of Doswellia. Now, Doswellia, much like Tannytrachelos of last week, is a denizen of the Triassic period. That's the time between 252 and 200 million years ago that was the beginning of the age of reptiles, long before the heyday of the dinosaurs like T-Rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus. Now, the star of this week's episode, Doswellia, is an animal about the size of a big dog. With its tail, it would have been about 4 or 5 feet in length. It was a reptile, with a flat skull and an elongated, narrow snout sticking out the front of it. Slender, sharp teeth, and eyes positioned near the top of the head. It would have had a really good view of things above it. And pretty much everything would have been above Doswellia. It was a squat animal, less than a foot tall standing up, and more than a foot wide at the belly region. I mean, this thing is legit big bone. No body shaming here. Probably would have walked something like a modern-day crocodile, so not quite as sprawled out as a lizard. Now, you may have noticed that the body shape of Doswellia actually calls to mind a certain modern group of reptiles that is still with us today. Armored bodies, long, narrow snout, mouth full of sharp teeth. Doswellia looks an awful lot like a crocodile. And what's amazing about that, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it, is because it's not a crocodile. It's not even particularly closely related to crocodiles among the reptiles. Doswellia and crocodiles may share a general body plan, but the way the fine details of the skeleton are put together is very, very different. The armor plates of Doswellia fit together in a way that's very different from those of modern crocodiles. Although the skulls of Doswellia and crocodiles are similar in shape, the individual bones that make up those skulls are actually very, very different. And despite their similar postures, there are also a lot of differences in the limb bones of Doswellia and modern crocodilians. Now, how could that be? That these two very different groups of reptiles achieved a very similar body shape? It's all part of a really amazing phenomenon that we observe in natural history called convergence or convergent evolution. I'll show you what I mean. To talk about the phenomenon of convergent evolution, I'm going to use an example in which two groups of animals both evolved a fish-like body plan from completely different ancestral forms. Over 250 million years ago, a population of small, lizard-like reptiles lived on a shoreline somewhere on the planet Earth. Possibly in response to an abundance of food or escape from predators, some of that population of reptiles started to spend a lot of their time in the water. And in the fossil record, we observe their descendants start to adapt anatomically to that life in the water. Their legs become shorter, stockier, sort of like paddles. Their whole body becomes narrower and more streamlined. And millions of years later, we see those shoreline-dwelling reptiles develop even more adaptations for a life in the water. A lot of different fins that allowed them to swim more effectively, and an even more streamlined and indeed fish-like body appearance. This is how the ichthyosaurs evolved into fish-like animals from a reptilian ancestor. Now, ichthyosaurs died out over 90 million years ago, before the dinosaurs even went extinct. So we don't have any swimming in the oceans today. But after the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, a similar story started to play out for a group of mammals. Specifically, small, hoofed mammals that lived near shorelines seem to have experienced the same sorts of pressures as those ancient reptiles did, to escape from predators and an abundance of food in the water. So some of them start shifting to a life in the water. After millions of years, we see the descendants of those early coast dwellers start to develop shorter limbs, sort of paddle-like limbs, and a more streamlined body shape. Millions of years later, those animals have developed even more fins and an even more streamlined fish-like body shape, And that's how we get the body plan of modern-day dolphins and whales. Because this fish-like body shape is something that's really good, apparently, for getting around and getting resources in a watery environment, these two separate groups of animals have both arrived at the same body plan. And that's the process of evolutionary convergence. Now, the story I told there about whales and ichthyosaurs is not directly related to Doswellia. Part of the reason I didn't tell the story of how Doswellia evolved is because we're still trying to figure out exactly what its ancient ancestors looked like before it got to this kind of crocodilian-type body plan. But there's no question that the crocodile-like body of Doswellia was a very popular thing for reptiles and indeed amphibians to evolve in the ancient past. Having a flat snout, long slender snout, sharp teeth, eyes on top of the head, armored body, aquatic habitat, all of these things are apparently a great way to make a living because different groups of amphibians, reptiles, and even some mammals keep evolving this same shape over and over again in the fossil record. It's an amazing convergent evolution story. What was Doswellia doing with its weird crocodile-like body plan? Was it living in the water and ambushing its prey? I honestly don't know. One of the problems in studying this animal is we have so few specimens. There's only one really good skeleton, and it's in the collections of the National Museum of Natural History and the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. But it was recovered near Doswell, Virginia, where there's actually a lot of amazing discoveries from the Triassic period to talk about. Which is why I kind of wanted to split this into two parts. Convergent evolution is only one part of the story of Doswellia. The rest has to do with the amazing environment it lived in and how we might be able to discover more specimens of this creature and the things that it lived with, which honestly we don't know a lot about because so little has been discovered from the Triassic in this area. It's exciting. I mean, we're going to be seeing new stuff. We're going to be seeing new species. And I look forward to sharing those with you in future tales of ancient life. For young scientists at home right now, I've got two assignments for you, if you feel like doing science, which I think everyone feels like doing science, right? Kind of biased. For kindergartners through second grade, take a look at these pictures of Doswellia and try and list out the features you can see that make it similar to a modern-day alligator or crocodile. For third graders and up, make that same list of features, and then try and speculate what exactly those features would allow that animal to achieve in its environment. What good is armor? What good are sharp teeth, or a flat skull with a long snout full of sharp teeth? So my parents visited in February and brought several boxes of my old stuff to my house in Martinsville, and as a result, I now have piles and piles more dinosaurs to use as props for these videos. I'm kind of excited about it. Some of them are really good models, too.